Jake Thompson had been a long-haul trucker for over 15 years. He was used to the long nights and endless stretches of highway, but something about this particular haul felt different. He had picked up his load from a remote warehouse in Nevada and was headed to a small town in Oregon. The dispatcher had been vague about the contents of the load, but Jake didn't ask questions. He just did his job. As Jake drove, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He stopped at a truck stop to grab a coffee and check on the load. When he opened the trailer, he saw several large, unmarked crates. There was a strange, almost metallic smell emanating from them. Jake shrugged it off and continued his journey, but the feeling of unease persisted. At the next truck stop, Jake met a fellow trucker named Bill. They exchanged stories and tips, but when Jake mentioned his load, Bill's demeanor changed. He warned Jake to be careful and not to trust anyone on the road, especially at night. Jake laughed it off, but Bill's words echoed in his mind as he drove away. A few hours later, Jake's truck started to wobble. He pulled over and found that one of his tires had been punctured by a large nail. As he changed the tire, he noticed a car parked a few hundred yards behind him. The car's headlights were off, and he couldn't see anyone inside. Jake quickly finished changing the tire and got back on the road. As the night wore on, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that he was being followed. Every time he checked his mirrors, he saw the same car, always keeping a safe distance. He tried to shake the car by taking unexpected turns, but it stayed with him. The fear began to gnaw at him, and he found himself driving faster and faster. Desperate for fuel and a break, Jake pulled into an old gas station off the highway. The place looked abandoned, but he needed to refuel. As he pumped the gas, he heard a noise behind him. He turned to see a figure darting behind one of the buildings. Jake called out, but there was no response. He quickly finished fueling and got back in his truck. As he drove, Jake turned on his CB radio, hoping to hear some reassuring voices. Instead, he picked up a strange transmission. It was a garbled message, but he could make out a few words. "Danger, cargo, don't stop." Jake's hands tightened on the wheel. Who was sending the message, and why were they warning him about his cargo? Jake decided to pull over at a rest area to check the load again. As he approached the trailer, he saw that one of the crates had been opened. Inside was a strange device, unlike anything he had ever seen. Before he could inspect it further, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned to see a man in dark clothing running towards him. Jake slammed the trailer door shut and jumped back into his truck, speeding away. The car that had been following him now gave chase in earnest. Jake weaved through the highway, trying to lose the car, but it stayed on his tail. He could see the driver now, a man with a grim, determined expression. Jake's heart pounded as he pushed the truck to its limits. In a moment of desperation, Jake decided to confront his pursuer. He found a secluded spot and pulled over, ready to face whatever was coming. The car screeched to a halt, and the driver stepped out, holding a gun. "You have no idea what you're carrying," the man shouted. "It's a prototype weapon, and they're willing to kill to get it back." Jake's blood ran cold as the man explained that a rogue government faction was trying to recover the stolen device. Before Jake could react, another car pulled up. This one was unmarked, but had the unmistakable aura of authority. Men in suits stepped out, weapons drawn. The man who had been chasing Jake raised his hands in surrender. "They're here to take it back," he said, "but you have to trust me. They'll kill us both once they have it." Jake had to make a quick decision. Jake decided to trust the man. He slammed the truck into gear and sped away, the man jumping into the passenger seat. Gunshots rang out as the suits tried to stop them, but Jake kept driving. The man directed him to a hidden safe house where they could lay low and figure out their next move. At the safe house, the man introduced himself as Agent Harper. He explained that the device was part of a top-secret project, and its technology was far too dangerous to fall into the wrong hands. They needed to get the device to a secure location where it could be dismantled safely. Jake and Harper formulated a plan. They would take the back roads to avoid detection and head to a secure facility several states away. Harper warned that the faction would stop at nothing to retrieve the device, so they had to be careful. As they drove through the night, Jake couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation. He had gone from a simple trucker to a key player in a dangerous game of espionage. The journey was fraught with tension, but they managed to stay one step ahead of their pursuers. When they finally reached the facility, it was heavily guarded. Harper made contact with his superiors, and they were allowed in. As the device was being unloaded, the faction arrived, and a fierce firefight broke out. Jake and Harper fought alongside the guards, determined to protect the device. In the end, the faction was defeated, and the device was secured. Harper thanked Jake for his bravery and promised that he would be rewarded. Jake, exhausted but relieved, watched as the sun began to rise. He knew his life would never be the same, but he was grateful to have made it through the ordeal. Jake returned to his life as a trucker, but he carried with him the memories of that harrowing journey. He had faced dangers he never imagined and emerged stronger. As he set out on his next haul, he couldn't help but wonder what other secrets the open road held.
Thank you for watching Midnight Knocks. If you enjoyed our horror stories, please give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more spine-chilling tales. Don't forget to check out our other videos for more eerie adventures. Until next time, stay spooky.